Hey everyone, welcome back to Dollar Games, and today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite seasons, fall. Now, if you're from the Chicago area like me, you know fall basically lasts about 2 weeks before it turns on to full-on winter. So yes, technically it's longer, but around here you really have to soak it up while you can. And for me, nothing says fall like cozy nights in. The days get shorter, the air gets crisp, and that seasonal depression just starts to creep in. That's where Cozy JRPGs come in. The kind of game that helps you forget about that looming dread of being stuck in the cold for the next 6 months. Games where you can sink into the characters, enjoy the slower pace, and just vibe with the world
as everything outside gets darker and colder.
So in this video, I'm going to share with you some of my favorite Cozy JRPGs that are perfect for the fall season. These are the games I reach for when I want comfort, nostalgia, and that kind of special atmosphere that makes you forget about the numb feeling of wet, cold shoes. When I think of Cozy JRPGs, one of the games that comes to mind is Blue Reflection. On the surface, it looks like a magical girl RPG with turn-based battles and flashy transformations. But beneath all of that is a very grounded story about healing and finding warmth in friendships. So, you play as Hinako, a former ballerina whose injury ends her dream, and suddenly she's given the power to fight in a surreal, dreamlike world. That mix of vulnerability and new purpose gives the game an emotional core that really sticks with you. What makes Blue Reflection especially fitting for the cozy season isn't just its themes, it's the atmosphere. The game has this quiet, almost melancholic tone where you spend just as much time walking around sun-drenched school corridors and just chatting with your classmates as you do battling enemies. The soundtrack leans into that soft piano and airy melodies, giving you a sense of winding down after a long day. The same way a cup of tea or, a glass of bourbon feels when the weather starts turning crisp. Now, there's also something very cozy about how the game frames its relationships. Instead of focusing purely on epic stakes, Blue Reflection often slows down to let you listen to your friends' worries. Offer them some encouragement and grow stronger together. It's those smaller human moments that make the game just feel cozy. Like a blanket, because it's getting cold out. I'm just grasping for analogies here, guys, so just bear with me. Okay, so that slower, more reflective pace is what sets Blue Reflection apart. It isn't about constant action or breakneck twists. It's about giving yourself space to breathe and to enjoy the little interactions along the way. For fall, when the days get darker and you're looking for something to sink into, Blue Reflection is exactly the kind of JRPG that pairs perfectly with a quiet night in, or loud, honestly, if you like that. It's on you. I'm not gonna judge you. Maybe. So technically, I finished this game during the summer after it was released back in March of this year, which is 2025 if you're watching this in the future. Hello, future people. But as I played, I kept thinking to myself how cozy and perfect for fall this game would be if I just waited. It's the kind of JRPG where the slower pacing and focus on everyday life just feel right for the season. But I do feel a sense of shame since the game was supposed to be the beginning of my year of the Atelier, which I failed at. But I'm going to blame that on the amount of incredible games that came out this year. Not my fault, okay? Alright, so like most games in the series, based on what I've heard, not played, obviously, Atelier Yumié blends light adventuring with crafting and alchemy. Instead of racing to save the world, you spend time collecting ingredients, experimenting with recipes, and just gradually honing your skills. That loop is calm and rewarding, and by the end of the long session, you feel productive without being drained. Which just screams cozy, right? Tell me I'm right, please. I need the validation. The setting also plays a big role. Yumia's villages, fields, and forests are all filled with warm colors and soft details, creating a world that just feels inviting rather than overwhelming. The soundtrack leans into that gentle tracks that make even routine tasks enjoyable, and exploring these environments feel less like a grind and more like you're out just hiking or something. Which ties perfectly to the way fall encourages us to slow down and take in the scenery. Except for me, the scenery is cornfields here and flat in Illinois, so I envy you with terrain. What really sells the game, though, is its focus on relationships and community. The Atelier series is always about more than just alchemy, and here you see how Yumiya's friendships and small interactions give life to the world. Watching the town grow and bonds strengthen carries a sense of comfort and connection. It's almost like relaxing on the couch watching some Gilmore Girls, but without the banter and Rory making bad life choices. Did you expect a Gilmore Girls reference when you clicked on this video? I don't think you did, but here it is. Please don't click away. Please. I beg of you. Don't do it. With the release of the Trails in the Sky First Chapter remake, it's the perfect chance for both newcomers and longtime fans to experience where the series truly began. The remake updates the visuals and presentation while keeping the heart of the story intact, which is the journey of Estelle and Joshua as they take their first steps as bracers. It's a story about growth, discovery, and adventure on a small but meaningful scale. Honestly, that kind of grounded beginning feels tailor-made for the slower pace of fall, and the fact that it literally released in fall just makes it a no-brainer pick. One of the things that makes Trails in the Sky so special is the world building. Every NPC has dialogue that evolves as the story progresses, and the towns feel alive in the way few JRPGs can manage. In the remake, sharper visuals and polished presentation makes Liberl more vibrant than ever, with deep colors and a warm aesthetic that fit perfectly into that cozy game night. The slow burn pacing only adds to that feeling. It's the kind of game you want to curl up with, just don't get too cozy and fall asleep before finishing. It's way too good for that. Now, combat has always been refined, drawing inspiration from action turn-based fusion, which we've seen in Trails Through Daybreak 1 and 2. This remake brings in the best mechanics from across the series, for example, like the Brave Points, blending challenge and flash into one of the most satisfying systems Falcom has ever put together. It's thoughtful without being overwhelming and flashy without sacrificing any strategy. But above all, what makes this such a cozy pick for the season is its heart. Estelle and Joshua's relationship is warm, funny, and often touching, and watching it evolve is just as rewarding as the larger story beats. The game reminds you that even the biggest adventures are made meaningful by the small moments in between. As the days get shorter and the air gets colder, or not, because man, it's still hot outside. That kind of character-driven warmth is exactly what makes this remake the perfect game to sink into this fall. When I think of JRPGs that feel surprisingly cozy, Final Fantasy XV is one that stands out. On the surface, it's a modern Final Fantasy with big battles and a world full of political tension and looming catastrophe. But at its core, it's really a story about four friends on a road trip.
Quincy, we are going on a road trip! Woo! Yes! Absolutely!
You play as Noctis, a prince with the weight of destiny hanging over him. But the game never forgets to give you the small moments, like the jokes, the camping trips, and the late night conversations, which brings a sense of levity to the all-around rough time. What gives Final Fantasy XV that cozy edge is the rhythm. Also, what do you guys think of the phrase cozy edge? Does it feel too edgy? I'm sorry. Anyways, you'll be cruising through wide open landscapes, watching the sunset as your buddies banter in the car.
Banter.
Banter. Uncomfortable human contact banter.
Or pull over to fight a monster just because it crossed your path. The game's world feels big, but it isn't always rushing you. There are stretches where the quiet is the point, where you're just driving, fishing, or exploring back roads. Those slower beats turn what could have been a straightforward adventure into something way more reflective. The relationships make this even stronger. Instead of being just party members like many other games, everyone feels like real friends. You're not just battling enemies together, you're up to all sorts of things like sharing meals, doing those goofy selfies, and just enjoying your time together. That sense of camaraderie softens the heavier story beats and keeps the game way grounded. It's not often a JRPG puts this much focus on the bonds between the main cast, and it's those smaller moments that I appreciate the most. It really adds growth and development to a cast that can otherwise be lost in the grand narrative they're stuck in. At the end of the day, Final Fantasy XV balances its epic, tragic story with the kind of quiet intimacy that makes it oddly cozy. It isn't about constant high stakes, it's about the little things you carry with you during the journey. Between setting up camp and cooking all sorts of delicious meals, it's the kind of JRPG that pairs perfectly with slowing down and just, soaking it all in. Now this pick is extremely personal. As a kid, there were a few SNES JRPGs that I would beat on a yearly basis, and Lufia 2 was one of them. I was obsessed with this game to the point where it became my cozy game to play when I needed time to decompress from school and everything going on around me. Now technically, it's a prequel to the first game, but it stands on its own with a mix of classic fantasy storytelling and that down-to-earth character moments. You play as Maxim, a young monster hunter who gradually realizes he's destined to face off against the godlike Sinistrals. On paper, it sounds like your typical chosen hero saves the world setup, but the way it's told makes it feel far more personal. Part of the coziness comes from how Lufia 2 balances its tone. Yes, there are heavy story beats, but you'll also be exploring small villages and enjoying charming conversations with your party members. It all just feels like a deeply personal adventure, and I remember spending so much time just exploring that world. Now, gameplay also leans into that cozy feeling. Instead of random, endless battles, you get puzzle-filled dungeons where every room feels like a little challenge to solve. You're pushing blocks, you're flipping switches, and you're using tools in ways that keep exploration engaging without making it too stressful. Now, the turn-based combat is straightforward, but satisfying. And the capsule monsters you can befriend add a layer of charm, which I enjoyed a bunch as a kid. What really makes Lufia 2 cozy though is the sense of steady progression and companionship. It doesn't overwhelm you with systems or massive worlds to manage. Instead, it gives you a story that builds naturally, characters that feel relatable, and music that's equal parts melancholic and soothing. It's the kind of JRPG that makes you want to curl up, take your time, and savor each step of Maxim's journey. Perfect for when you're in the mood for something to kick back with and just enjoy. Now let's hope we get a more modern way to play this. Dragon Quest as a series always screamed cozy to me. On the surface, it's this big classic epic with heroes, destinies, and saving the world, but honestly, it's one of the most comforting JRPG series I've ever played. To me, the perfect Dragon Quest game to jump into for that cozy feeling is Dragon Quest XI. In the game, you take on the role as a luminary, but instead of constantly rushing into danger, the game just gives you time to run around, wandering through towns, chatting up the goofy NPCs, or hearing that little victory theme after every battle. I just can't handle the amount of nostalgia playing this game, but in like a good way. What really makes this game so cozy is its pacing. Yes, the story is big and dramatic, but it doesn't shove you forward non-stop. You'll spend long stretches just exploring everything this game has to offer. The world feels alive, but not overwhelming, which makes it easy to just wander at your own pace. Honestly, the slower rhythm might sound like too much, but when you want to escape into a world and its characters, it just hits perfectly. It's the kind of game you can sink into for a few hours and try not to think about the looming dread of winter coming your way. Or give you an excuse to stay inside and just relax. And the party. Now, it's pure comfort food. Sylvando is basically joy incarnate, Veronica is a snarky little sister you can't help but love, Rab feels like the grandpa handing out life lessons, and Eric, well, he's just Eric. The dynamic between everyone just makes you want to stick around longer, and I totally appreciate that since the main character is a silent protagonist, and I feel like everyone else does a wonderful job of making things interesting.
Just never felt so comfortable around anybody before. The stories we shared, the conversations we had, it means something.
I don't think you said a single word since we left.
That's why Dragon Quest XI works as a cozy JRPG pick. It doesn't just hit you with high stakes, it gives you room to relax into the world, enjoy its charm, and soak in that colorful storybook-like vibe. For fall, when you're looking to curl up and get lost into something both epic and comforting, this game is absolutely perfect. I was going to put in a line about playing this with pumpkin spice latte, but I'm not that basic. I swear. Fantasian is one of those games that's just perfect for any time of the year, but also especially for the fall. On paper, it's a newer JRPG by Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of Final Fantasy, and music by Nobuo Uematsu, so you know it'll be epic. And sure, it has big moments and dramatic twists, but what makes it cozy is how it feels to just exist in that world. The handcrafted dioramas that make up every environment has this warmth to it. Almost like you're exploring a miniature model town you'd find on someone's shelf. There's something oddly comforting about wandering through a place that looks both real and dreamlike at the same time. What makes Fantasian especially cozy is its pacing. The dimension system lets you scoop up random encounters and deal with them later, which means you can actually take your time soaking in the scenery without the constant interruptions. You're free to wander, check out the little details of these dioramas, and just, you know, hang out, man. Do you want to join?
Would you ever want to hang out socially? Okay. Well, thanks anyway.
We love you.
Thanks.
All right.
So it's a game that respects your time and is also perfect for handheld mode. So relaxing on the couch playing this is a top tier way to play. Now the characters help sell the cozy feeling too. Leo's journey may be tinged with amnesia and mystery, but the party you gather feels like a mix of familiar archetypes and quirky personalities that help relax the overall feeling of the story. Their banter adds charm, and when paired with Uematsu's emotional score, sometimes soft and nostalgic and sometimes sweeping, you get this consistent reminder that JRPGs are as much about feeling as they are about plot. It's the kind of soundtrack that makes you want to just sit back and let it wash over you. So do it, or else I'll come and make you.
Oh my goodness!
That's why Fantasian belongs on a list of cozy JRPGs. It isn't about saving the world, it's about the joy of exploring beautifully crafted spaces, connecting with characters who feel genuine, and letting yourself sink into a world that's handmade with care. For fall, when you want something cozy and fun, Fantasian is the perfect choice. Now roll yourself up in a blanket and start playing. Just do it. Harvestella is one of those games that fell under the radar, especially with me since it was marketed in possibly the worst way. It was announced in a Nintendo Direct with a bunch of other farming sims, and honestly, farming sims just don't do it for me. But Harvestella is one of those games that surprised me with how much warmth it brings, even as the world around its characters slowly unravels. If you don't believe me, ask Brandon from the channel Just the Gems. He won't shut up about it, but like in the best way possible. So you start the game as a silent protagonist in a world plagued by the looming season of death known as Quietus. Between managing a farm, helping towns, and fighting in dungeons, you get to thread together this weird, beautiful balance of life and decay, which is wild based on the trailer and description they have for this game. You really would never have thought it. The thing I love most is how Harvestella doesn't force farming down your throat. Instead, it leans into its RPG heart. The farming supports your journey, growing crops, helping you cook food, healing your party, and building resources. Yet, you'll spend much more time doing quests, talking to townsfolk, and chasing the story forward than staring at your farm. That said, the farming isn't shallow. It has all the mechanics to keep you tinkering, experimenting, and feeling that little surge of pleasure when your plot expands or your next crop yields a bonus. But again, I don't really dabble much outside of the basic farming since it's just not for me. Now, combat is simple, maybe even minimalistic, and it's fair to say it won't win awards for complexity. You pick jobs, switch between them in battles, and try to exploit elemental weaknesses while managing stamina and cooldowns. It works, it feels serviceable, you won't feel overwhelmed, but sometimes I wish it pushed further in depth. Still, it's good enough that it doesn't drag the experience down. What really sells Harvestella as a cozy pick is the tone. The world is gorgeous with lush landscapes, color-shifting seasons, and haunting beauty during Quietus. The side quests often have surprising charm and heart, and the writing handles small-town struggles with a mix of everyday worry and fantastical stakes. Coupled with that incredible soundtrack, you can't help but get addicted to this world. Now for fall, when darkness just creeps earlier and staying inside feels much better than stepping outside, Harvestella provides a perfect escape that feels both relaxing and meaningful. Legend of Mana is one of those JRPGs that I just can't shut up about. I feel like I'm always bringing it up, and honestly, I'm not going to apologize for it. You see, this game is especially perfect for this time of the year. Instead of throwing you into some massive world-ending crisis, this game sets you up with an intro and then it's up to you to explore and build the world around you. This game has you setting up your world map, tending to your animal companions, and tackling little vignettes regarding the inhabitants of this world, and also some light farming or music if that's what you're into. The sense of freedom instantly gives it a slower, more, relaxed feel. You're not really racing against a ticking clock. You're just tackling and shaping this world at your own pace. And with its watercolor style visuals, every screen looks like it was pulled straight out of a picture book. What makes Legend of Mana especially cozy is the way it tells its story. Or rather, its collection of stories. You don't get one giant linear plot, instead you're wandering into smaller arcs about quirky characters, magical creatures, and just strange little towns. It really takes that storybook aesthetic and embraces it into an actual narrative style, which feels like reading a book of short stories. Each chapter has its own charm, but together they weave a larger narrative about the world, which is such a fun way to experience a game and why I'm so obsessed with it. The atmosphere is the real star here though. Between the stunning hand-drawn environments and Yoko Shimomura's dreamy soundtrack, every moment feels like slipping into a whimsical fairy tale. Even just wandering through Domina or listening to the subtle background melodies feel like a kind of escape. I am ready for that kind of vibe after all the epic JRPGs I played in the last couple of months. Plus, this game was incredibly remastered, so you all should give that game some love. But anyways, that's why Legend of Mana works so well as a cozy JRPG. It's about exploration, creativity, and fun little stories where you don't always need to be saving the world, but still make you care. But for fall, when you're looking for something that feels more like a warm storybook than a high-stakes saga, this game hits perfectly. Just don't blame me when you're spending half of your playthrough wishing Little Cactus was real, because he's just the cutest. When it comes to cozy JRPGs, I can't leave out the Lunar games. Silver Star Story and Eternal Blue both capture that perfect balance of whimsical adventure and heartfelt storytelling. It's a game that I'm especially nostalgic for and have replayed many times throughout my childhood. They're basically comfort food JRPGs, and I love comfort food. Seriously. Silver Star Story is the wide-eyed fairy tale of the two. You play as Alex, a small-town dreamer who just wants to follow in the footsteps of his hero, Dragon Master Dine. It starts small with getting friends together to go on an adventure, but that's exactly what makes it so cozy. The game doesn't rush you into saving the world. Instead, it lets you soak up the charm of its characters and towns while building towards the bigger journey. Between the colorful 2D visuals, the animated cutscenes, and that iconic soundtrack, it's a game that feels like it was designed to just be happy and cozy. It's definitely worth playing. Then you got Eternal Blue, which feels like an older sibling. Still warm and comforting, but a little bit more thoughtful. You follow Hiro and Ruby on a journey that quickly grows into something much larger, but the heart of the game is still in those small moments. Eternal Blue gives you the time to watch your party's relationships grow and deepen, and that bond is what makes the adventure feel so personal. They really hit their stride with Eternal Blue, and the character moments grew with that. Now, the presentation in this game is way more charming, with expressive sprites and a soundtrack that honestly might be one of the coziest. Together, Lunar 1 and 2 are exactly the kind of games you want for this fall season. They don't just deliver epic adventures, they give you warmth, nostalgia, and characters that feel like old friends. They remind you that the most comforting stories are the ones that balance big dreams and small human moments. Even if you grew up without these games, you'll still feel that sense of nostalgia due to the 90s charm. It's the perfect throwback to that era of JRPGs to help you through fall and winter. So yeah, when I think about fall, it's not just the changing of the leaves or the short-lived Chicago weather. It's about slowing down and finding comfort where you can. For me, cozy JRPGs are the perfect escape. Whether it's that quiet reflection of blue reflection. See what I did there? Well, actually, no, this time I'm not proud of it, but I'll keep it in. The heartfelt journey of Estelle and Joshua, or that nostalgic magic of classics like Lunar. Those games give us all just cozy vibes that we all want. And when seasonal depression is in full swing, what better way to fight it than with my picks for cozy JRPGs? But now, I want to hear from you. What's your go-to Cozy JRPG? What's the game that you turn to when you just want that sweet, sweet comfort? Drop it in the comments because I'd love to see what everyone's picks are. Thanks again for checking out my videos. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all of that good stuff. It really helps me out and keeps this little community growing. Until next time, stay warm, stay cozy, and stay classy. Nope, that was terrible. I'll have to cut that out. Yeah. Anyways, bye.